everybody. Oh, let me get this up. Yeah. Hello, hello, hello. How is everybody doing? What's up, Nate? It is always good to see you, son. Catch 'em all, Kev. How's it going, Brangus McGee? Good to see you. JB's Pokestop. Ancient Mew. I'm glad you're doing well. Whew. Yeah, I had quite the day. Katrina and Leighton, I saw you in here. Darker Bunnies, how's it going? Appreciate you guys being here early. Sorry I got caught up trying to get set up. And also, our good friend Ian with Ian decided to just pop up stream today, and that was something that I was not anticipating. I am lucky and fortunate enough to be a moderator over at Ian with Ian, so I was hanging out over there. Good to see him. It's been over a month since last he streamed, so sorry I got pushed back a little bit. That's a good question, Brangus. Nate, what do you say? I know you were. I saw you. We are ready for story time. I feel kind of embarrassed. I didn't charge the Kindle up too much. I think we can get through the rest of the book with where we're at, but it's doing a little charge real quick while I do the cube. And that's a good question. Are you planning on coming on over here, Nate? I know you got school now, yeah? Are you in school or are you on fall break? I don't think it's fall break yet, but. Matt Gooch, hope you're doing well. Can everybody hear me okay? Is the headset working? And also, I super appreciate anybody that watched my new video today. As everybody here knows, it has certainly been a dream of mine for a very long time to read books and stories and all that, and I've been saying it forever. That I was, thanks, Brangus. I was going to do the Raven reading, and I finally did. I did the Raven reading. I did that last night, and then I got so excited I just spent the rest of the waking hours editing it, and I released it. Today I got a lot of great feedback. So I appreciate everybody that went and showed that support for me. It really meant a lot, and I was really proud of that one. See what I can do. But my job interview got pushed back to this weekend. I finally got finalized. However, I might have to be able to come over. No, that's not ideal at all. And we can talk, Nate. Yeah, we can talk on the side. I'm still convinced, and I certainly do want you to be here. Espolo, how's it going? It's so great to see all of your names. I swear I've duct taped packages for all of you today. Yeah, definitely, and I want to help you see what you can do because it's only going to be for a couple of hours. So if even that's all we get, then that's all we get. But it would be probably the one thing, if anybody were to ask me what is it that I would like for my birthday, it would be that. So, not to put any pressure on it. Your job is super important, though, and I hope that it does go well. I'm super glad that you got it finalized, and I know you're going to crush it. And I appreciate that, son. I do. As well as I'm sure the Ghost fam would like to see you again. Of course, by the next time they see you, you're going to be bigger than me with a much deeper voice. But how is everybody else's Monday? How did everybody get on today? Everybody have a good day. I did not have to work today, so that is something that I am fortunate for, as it is Indigenous Peoples Day here in uh, here in America, and we got that day off this year, so that was kind of nice. I didn't waste today like I wasted some of my weekend days. I decided to sit down and I did a whole bunch of stuff. And all of it was get my mail stack cleared. So that is just waiting for the hunters to come pick it up and take it on over to the post. And then I'm going to need everybody to let me know when they receive it. That is all that I ask. Hmm. Not a great day. Whole body muscle pains for the most of that, man. I'm sorry to hear that. Pretty good day for me. Glad to hear that, Mia. Sorry to hear that, Brangus. Truly, I hope it gets better soon, man. And as always, just let me know if there's anything that we can do for you. And if we got it, you got it. And it's good to see Katrina and Layton. I saw your message saying that you guys were back home now, and I'm so glad that you guys are good and okay. Yeah, I'm hoping that this is going to provide the nice little relaxing environment that we also need sometimes. And what I'm going to try and do, I've been having a real hard time balancing this plug today, solely because I have another one in it. I'm going to try and keep the Kindle plugged in, and of course, looking at it, and you all know kind of how fast I can read, that we typically get through anywhere between 6 and 8 chapters, but we did go one additional chapter last time, if y'all remember. So this time we actually only have like 5 chapters left to go. And so I figured, depending on the time we get done, if we do have time, what I'm going to attempt to do, and hope it's a little bit easy, is I'm going to attempt to find a copy of Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart, so that I can read that at the end of the book. And I figured, because the longer I wait through October, it'll be over before we're done. Lori, it's good to see you, boo. Rafa, happiest Monday to you. Thanks. Should be back to normal tomorrow. Here's to hoping, man. My heart's with you. Lori, Nate's here. Rafa's here. Ghost fams all here. It is good to see you all. Where are we? Just about 8 minutes. We'll give it one more minute for anybody coming on in. I have heard rumors, Brangus, and all of them probably exactly that, rumors. I have not been able to, one, find any of them for like public sale. Two, I heard, here's the rumor, that they were only distributing them to merchandisers to distribute them in single packs for trick or treat events. And three, I did some digging because I really, really, really wanted to find some, and there were some awesome like foreign Halloween Pokemon cards that I found, and I have no idea what they were, and they were like $50 a box. There was like 4 different volumes, and they were all Pokemon dressed up as Halloween characters, and they were so cute, and I want them. I want them real bad, but I don't think they're the trick or treat. So, woo, excellent. I'm glad to see that you're here, Katrina. From home, no doubt. Mama Ghost, how are you doing? It's good to see you, Mama Ghost. Yes, indeed. Glad we are back home. We should do Halloween giveaways. Well, trick or trades and call them booster packs. Yeah, okay, we're gonna do it because that's just an ingenious idea right there. You should start going through some of your bulk, Nate, if you have a bulk, and start pulling out the ghosts and make some little booster packs. That's copywritten, y'all. You can't just use that, by the way. We've been using that for a while. No, just kidding. Yeah, I think that would be cool. Kind of like I was doing with my vintage bulk. We could make little Halloween booster packs. You're so funny, Nate. See, that's why you need to be here. I'm officially claiming booster packs. You have some of the older packs coming in your package. No shot. Let's go. Appreciate that, Brangus. I was watching today. Who was I watching? Oh no, it was Poke Girl Jessie. It was yesterday, and glad to see that Maddie G is better. But now Poke Girl Jessie is a little sick. Hmm. So they need to get better. But they were giving away trick or trade packs, and I was like, "Are those from 23?" And yeah, I think they were from 2023, and just some of the cards were brilliant. I'd almost forgotten. Halloween themed booster cards on Gladiator stream. They're super cute. No idea where he got them from though. They're probably the same ones of which I'm talking about, and I can't remember the country that they were from. No, and I don't want to misspeak either, but they were certainly not like they kind of reminded me of Ice Baby, but they were not Ice Baby. I wonder if I can do this. Taiwan, maybe, but I feel like that's something that I would remember. Oh, let's go. I'm hoping that that doesn't. Yeah, I can't see nothing now. Let's go one down. Sorry, y'all. I was trying to blow up my chat, and it didn't really work. Now it's just way too big. Especially my boy. He had special permission to stay at the hospital with me. Thank you all for the prayers and well wishes. Absolutely. Yeah, you should post them in the Discord when you get them, Rafa. I would love to see the ones you got. 12 likes, 12 viewers. Math be mathin'. I think if I just one more. All right, and now I wait and see. I was making my chat bigger so that I could see it from farther away, which is something that I probably should have did like 20 episodes ago. Awesome, that's going to work just fine. All right, y'all, let's get into it. Read for the night. We're going to finish up the last 26, 27, 28, yeah, that is 30. Plays with your brain because we're on 26, but there's 5 chapters left and only 30 chapters. But that's because we haven't read 26 yet. So, without further ado, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for believing in ghosts. And let's finish up the road to the City of Oz. Road to the Emerald City. That's it. Chapter 26. How Ozma refused to fight for her kingdom. Ooh, something caught my eye. Just give me 1 second. All right. Thank you all for your patience there. All right. Everybody notice my boba? See our boba chilling here now? All right. 26. How Ozma refused to fight for her kingdom. Ozma was in her rose garden picking a bouquet when the party arrived, and she greeted all her old and new friends as smilingly and sweetly as ever. Dorothy's eyes were full of tears, and she kissed their lovely ruler of Oz, and she whispered to her, "Oh, Ozma, Ozma, I'm so sorry." Ozma seemed surprised. "Sorry for what, Dorothy?" she asked. "For all your trouble about the Gnome King," was the reply. Ozma laughed with genuine amusement. "Why, that has not troubled me a bit, dear princess," she replied. Then, looking around at the sad faces of her friends, she added, "Have you all been worrying about this tunnel?" "We have," they exclaimed in a chorus. "Well, perhaps it is more serious than I imagined," admitted the fair ruler. "But I haven't given the matter much thought. After dinner, we will all meet together and talk it over." So they went to their rooms and prepared for dinner, and Dorothy dressed herself in her prettiest gown and put on her coronet, for she thought that this might be the last time she would ever appear as the Princess of Oz. The Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman and Jack Pumpkinhead all sat at the dinner table, although none of them was made so he could eat. Usually they served to enliven the meal. With their merry talk, but tonight they all seemed strangely silent and uneasy. As soon as the dinner was finished, Ozma led the company to her own private room in which they hung the magic picture. When they had seated themselves, the Scarecrow was first to speak. "The Gnome King's tunnel is finished. Is the Gnome King's tunnel finished, Ozma?" he asked. "It was completed today," she replied. "They have built it right under my palace grounds, and it ends in front of the Forbidden Fountain. Nothing but a crust of earth remains to separate our enemies from us, and when they march here, they will easily break through this crust and rush upon us." "Who will assist the Gnome King?" inquired the Scarecrow. "The Whimsies, the Growlywogs, and the Phanfasms," she replied. "I watched today in my magic picture the messengers whom the Gnome King sent to all these people to summon them to assemble in his great caverns." "Let us see what they are doing now," suggested the Tin Woodman. So Ozma wished to see the Gnome King's cavern, and at once the landscape faded from the magic picture and was then being enacted in the jeweled cavern of King Roquat. A wild and startling scene it was which the Oz people beheld. Before the Gnome King stood the chief of the Whimsies and the grand Galliput of the Growlywog, surrounded by their most skillful generals. Very fierce and powerful they looked, so that even the Gnome King and General Guff, who stood beside his master, seemed a bit fearful in the presence of their allies. Now a still more formidable creature entered the cavern. It was the first and foremost of the Phanfasms, and he proudly sat down in King Roquat's own throne and demanded the right to lead his forces through the tunnel in advance of all the others. The first and foremost now appeared to all eyes in his hairy skin and the bear's head. What his real form was, even Roquat did not know, though the arches leading into the vast series of caverns that lay beyond the throne room of King Roquat uh, could be seen ranks upon ranks of the invaders, thousands of Phanfasms, Growlywogs, and Whimsies standing in serried lines, while behind them were massed the thousands upon thousands of General Guff's own army of gnomes. "Listen," whispered Ozma. "I think we can hear what they're saying." So they all kept still and listened. "Is all ready?" demanded the first and foremost haughtily. "The tunnel is finally complete," replied General Guff. "How long will it take us to march to the Emerald City?" asked the Grand Galliput of the Growlywogs. "If we start at midnight," replied the Gnome King, "we shall arrive at the Emerald City by daybreak. Then, while all the Oz people are sleeping, we will capture them and make them our slaves. After that, we will destroy the city itself and march through the land of Oz, burning and devastating as we go." "Good!" cried the first and foremost. "When we get through with Oz, it will be the desert wilderness. It'll be a desert wilderness. Ozma shall be my slave." She shall be my slave, shouted the Grand Galliput angrily. We decided that by and by, said King Roquat hastily. Don't let us quarrel now, friends. First let us conquer Oz, and then we will divide the spoils of war in a satisfactory manner. The first and foremost smiled wickedly, but he only said, I and my phanfasms go first, for nothing on earth can oppose our power. They all agreed to that, knowing the phanfasms to be the mightiest of the combined forces. King Roquat now invited them to attend a banquet he had prepared, where they might occupy themselves in eating and drinking until midnight arrived. As they had now seen and heard all of the plot against them that they cared to, Ozma allowed her magic picture to fade away. Then she turned to her friends and said, Our enemies will be here sooner than I expected. What do you advise me to do? It is now too late to assemble our people, said the Tin Woodman despondently. If you had allowed me to arm and drill my Winkies, we might have put up a good fight and destroyed many of our enemies before we were conquered. The Munchkins are good fighters too, said Omby Amby, and so are the Gillikins. But I do not wish to fight, declared Ozma firmly. No one has the right to destroy any living creatures, however evil they may be, or to hurt them or make them unhappy. I will not fight, even to save my kingdom. The Gnome King is not so particular, remarked the Scarecrow. He intends to destroy us all and ruin our beautiful country. Ozma allowed her magic picture to fade away, and she turned. Sorry. Because the Gnome King intends to do evil is no excuse for my doing the same, replied Ozma. Self-preservation is the first law of nature, quoted the Shaggy Man. True, she said readily. I would like to discover a plan to save ourselves without fighting. That seemed a hopeless task to them, but realizing that Ozma was determined not to fight, they tried to think some means they might promise an escape. Couldn't we bribe our enemies by giving them a lot of emeralds and gold? Asked Jack Pumpkinhead. No, because they believe they are able to take everything we have, replied the ruler. I have thought of something, said Dorothy. What is it, dear? Asked Ozma. Let us use the magic belt to wish all of us in Kansas. We will put some emeralds in our pockets and we can sell them in Topeka for enough to pay off a mortgage on Uncle Henry's farm. Then we can all live there and be happy. A clever idea, exclaimed the Scarecrow. Kansas is a very good country. I've been there, said the Shaggy Man. That seems to me an excellent plan, approved the Tin Woodman. No, said Ozma decidedly. Never will I desert my people and leave them to such cruel a fate. I will use the magic belt to send the rest of you to Kansas, if you wish. But if my beloved country must be destroyed and my people enslaved, I will remain and share their fate. Quite right, asserted the Scarecrow, sighing. I will remain with you. And so will I, declared the Tin Woodman and the Shaggy Man and Jack Pumpkinhead in turn. Tick-Tock, the Machine Man, also said he intended to stand by Ozma, for, said he, I should be of no use at all in Kansas. For my part, announced Dorothy gravely, if the ruler of Oz must not desert her people, a princess of Oz has no right to run away either. I'm willing to become a slave with the rest of you, so all we can do with the magic belt is to use it to send Uncle Henry and Aunt Em back to Kansas. I've been a slave all my life, Aunt Em replied, with considerable cheerfulness, and so is Henry. I guess we won't go back to Kansas anyway. I'd rather take my chances here with the rest of you. Ozma smiled upon them gratefully. There is no need to despair just yet, she said. I'll get up early tomorrow morning and be at the Forbidden Fountain when the fierce warriors break through the crust of the earth. I will speak to them pleasantly, and perhaps they won't be so very bad after all. Why do they call it the Forbidden Fountain? Asked Dorothy thoughtfully. Don't you know, dear? Returned Ozma, surprised. No, said Dorothy. Of course, I've seen the fountain in the palace grounds. I've ever since I first came to Oz, and I've read the sign which says all persons are forbidden to drink at this fountain, but I never knew why they were forbidden. The water seems clear and sparkling, and it bubbles up in the golden basin all the time. That water, declared Ozma gravely, is the most dangerous thing in all the land of Oz. It is the water of oblivion. What does that mean? Asked Dorothy. Whoever drinks at the Forbidden Fountain at once forgets everything he has ever known, Ozma asserted. It wouldn't be a bad way to forget our troubles, suggested Uncle Henry. That is true, but you would forget everything else and become as ignorant as a baby, returned Ozma. Does it make one crazy? Asked Dorothy. No, it only makes one forget, replied the girl ruler. It is said that once long ago, a wicked king ruled Oz and made himself and all his people very miserable and unhappy, so Glinda, the good sorceress, placed this fountain here. And the king drank of its water and forgot all his wickedness. His mind became innocent and vacant, and when he learned the things of life again, they were all good things. But the people remembered how wicked their king had been and were still afraid of him. Therefore, he made them all drink the water of oblivion and forget everything they had known, so that they became as simple and innocent as their king. After that, they all grew wise together, and their wisdom was good, so that peace and happiness reigned in this land. But for fear someone might drink of the water again and in an instant forget all he had learned, the king put that sign upon the fountain, where it has remained for many centuries up to this very day. They all listened intently to Ozma's story, and when she finished speaking, there was a long period of silence while all thought upon the curious magical power of the water of oblivion. Finally, the Scarecrow's painted face took on a broad smile that stretched the cloth as far as it would go. How thankful I am, he said, that I have such excellent assortment of brains. I gave you the best brains I ever mixed, declared the wizard with an air of pride. You did indeed, agreed the Scarecrow, and they work so splendidly that they have found a way to save Oz, to save us all. I'm glad to hear that, said the wizard. We never needed saving more than we do just now. Do you mean to say you can save us from those awful phanfasms and growlywogs and whimsies? Asked Dorothy eagerly. I'm sure of it, my dear, asserted the Scarecrow, still smiling genially. Tell us how, cried the Tin Woodman. Not now, said the Scarecrow. You may all go to bed, and I advise you to forget your worries just as completely as if you had drunk the water of oblivion in the forbidden fountain. I'm going to stay here and tell my plan to Ozma alone, but if you will all be at the forbidden fountain at daybreak, you'll see how easily we will save the kingdom when our enemies break through the crust of the earth and come from the tunnel. So they went away and let the Scarecrow and Ozma alone. But Dorothy could not sleep a wink all night. He's only a scarecrow, she said to herself, and I'm not sure his mixed brains are as clever as he thinks they are. But she knew that if the Scarecrow's plan failed, they were all lost, so she tried to have faith in him. Changed my meds, feeling a bit better, resting at home late in life. Excellent. I love that. That was pretty cute. All right. I thought that's perfect for it. And so far, last I checked, I think the Pikachu is actually winning the battle of next model we build. But I appreciate every single person being here. Got 11 people here, 15 likes already. You guys are great. And sorry for my little, it normally takes me a chapter or two to get the rust off a little bit. All right. Chapter 27, How the Fierce Warriors Invaded Oz. The Gnome King and his terrible allies sat at the banquet table until midnight. There was much quarreling between the Growlywogs and Phanfasms, and one of the wee-headed whimsies got angry at General Guff and choked him until he nearly stopped breathing. Yet no one was seriously hurt, and the Gnome King felt much relieved when the clock struck 12 and they all sprang up and seized their weapons. "Aha!" shouted the first and foremost. "Now to conquer the land of Oz!" He marshaled his Phanfasms in battle array, and at his word of command they marched into the tunnel and began the long journey through it to the Emerald City. The first and foremost intended to take all the treasure of Oz for himself, to kill all who he could be killed and enslave the rest, to destroy and lay waste to the whole country, and afterward to conquer and enslave the gnomes and the growlywogs and the whimsies, and he knew his power was sufficient to enable him to do all of these things easily. Next marched into the tunnel of the army of gigantic growlywogs, with their grand Galliput at their heads. They were dreadful beings indeed, and longed to get to Oz, that they might begin to pilfer and destroy. The Grand Gallipoot was a little afraid of the First and Foremost, but had a cunning plan to murder or destroy that powerful being and secure the wealth of Oz for himself. Mighty little of the plunder would the Gnome King get, thought the Grand Gallipoot. The chief of the Whimsies now marched his false-headed foes into the tunnel. In his wicked little head was a plot to destroy both the First and Foremost and the Grand Gallipoot. He intended to let them conquer Oz, since they insisted on going first, but he would afterward treacherously destroy them, as well as King Roquat, and keep all the slaves and treasure of Ozma's kingdom for himself. After all his dangerous allies had marched into the tunnel, the Gnome King and General Guff started to follow them, at the head of 50,000 gnomes, all fully armed. "Guff," said the king, "those creatures ahead of us mean mischief. They intend to get everything for themselves and leave us nothing." "I know," replied the general, "but they are not as clever as they think they are." "When you get the magic belt, you must at once wish the Whimsies and Growlywogs and Phanphasms all back to their own countries, and the belt will surely take them there." "Good!" cried the king. "An excellent plan, Guff. I'll do it. While they are conquering Oz, I'll get the magic belt, and then only the gnomes will remain to ravage the country. So you see, there is only one thing that all were agreed upon, that Oz should be destroyed." On, the vast ranks of invaders marched, filling the tunnel from side to side with a steady tramp, tramp, as they advanced, every step taking them nearer the beautiful Emerald City. "Nothing can save the land of Oz," thought the First and Foremost, scowling until his bare face was as black as the tunnel. "The Emerald City is as good as destroyed already," muttered the Grand Gallipoot, shaking his war club furiously. "In a few hours Oz will be a desert," said the chief of the Whimsies with an evil laugh. "My dear Guff," remarked the Gnome King to his general, "at last my vengeance upon Ozma of Oz and her people is about to be accomplished." "You're right," declared the general. "Ozma is surely lost." And now the First and Foremost, who was in advance and nearing the Emerald City, began to cough and sneeze. "This tunnel is terribly dusty," he growled angrily, and I'll punish that Gnome King for not having it swept clean. My throat and eyes are getting full of dust, and I'm thirsty as a fish." The Grand Gallipoot was coughing too, and his throat was parched and dry. "What a dusty place," he cried. "I'll be glad when we reach Oz where we can get a drink." "Who has any water?" asked the Whimsy's chief, gasping and choking, but none of his followers carried a drop of water. So he hastened on to get through the dusty tunnel to the land of Oz. "Where did all this dust come from?" demanded the General Guff, trying hard to swallow, but finding his throat so dry he couldn't. "I don't know," answered the Gnome King. "I've been in this tunnel every day while it was being built, but I never noticed any dust before." "Let's hurry," cried the General. "I'll give half the gold in Oz for a drink of water." The dust grew thicker and thicker, and the throats and eyes and noses of the invaders were filled with it. But not one halted or turned back. They hurried forward, more fierce and vengeful than ever. "Hey, Seth, how's it going, man?" Story's starting to heat up indeed. Things are starting to happen. The names in the book are quite funny to say, the Grand Gallipoot, and to say it with a straight face. Michikav, I left, so this is where I see you now. Aw, I'm sorry to hear that, Nat. And no worries at all. You are always welcome here. And I'm sorry to hear that. You'll have to message me on the side and let me know what happened. Unless it's just as obvious as I left. Catch 'em all, Kev. Good to see you, brother. But yeah, this is getting. We can all see where this is going, right? I'm glad you could make it, Seth. We just finished the second chapter of. We got 3 more to read, so. Oh yeah, I guess that would be true, huh? Do you have Discord, Nat? Or you can exclamation point email, exclamation point Discord. You can email me too. Exclamation point email. You can email me there. Doesn't it though? Doesn't he look amazing chilling there? Oh, that's a good call, Brangus. So, not as of yet. I can only assume they don't work over the weekend or on holidays. So, I am thinking that tomorrow is when I'm going to get a word back from them. But I've been checking every single day, and as it is right now, they are willing to take my inquiry. In fact, they said, whatever you need, whatever it is, just let us know. So, yeah, I am holding on hope, Brangus, but things should be coming to a head this week. Yep, just through your regular email is fine. Yep, that is just fine. And no rush whatsoever. I just want to make sure that we still have a way to communicate. Yeah, man, I mean, you were here for a majority of the build. It can be a little frustrating and you got to be delicate in some places, but man, these are so fun to build and create. I'm really looking forward to the rest of them. It's good to see you, JBs. All right, so as of right now, it looks like Oz is making everybody thirsty. They want to drink from a certain fountain, if you catch my drift. And meanwhile, all the bad guys are planning to take on each other. So I guess it's true. There's no honor among thieves. All right. Let's go to chapter 28. And we all saw this coming, how they drank at the Forbidden Fountain. The Scarecrow had no need to sleep. Neither had the Tin Woodman, Tick-Tock, or Jack Pumpkinhead, so they all wandered out into the palace grounds and stood beside the sparkling water of the Forbidden Fountain until daybreak. During this time, they indulged in occasional conversation. "Nothing can make me forget what I know," remarked the Scarecrow, gazing into the fountain, "for I cannot drink the water of oblivion or water of any kind. And I am glad that this is so, for I consider my wisdom unexcelled." "You are certainly very wise," agreed Tik-Tok. "For my part, I can only think by machinery, so I do not pretend to know as much as you do." "My tin brains are very bright, but that is all I claim for them," said Nick Chopper modestly. "Yet I do not aspire to be very wise, for I have noticed that the happiest people are those that do not let their brains oppress them." "Mine never worry me," Jack Pumpkinhead acknowledged. "There are many seeds of thought in my head, and they do not sprout easily. I am glad that it is so, for if I occupied my days in thinking, I should have no time for anything else." In this cheery mood, they passed the hours until the first golden streaks of dawn appeared in the sky. Then Ozma joined them, as fresh and lovely as ever, and robed in one of her prettiest gowns. "Our enemies have not yet arrived," said the Scarecrow after greeting affectionately the sweet and girlish ruler. "They will soon be here," she said, "for I have just glanced at my magic picture, and have seen them coughing and choking with the dust in the tunnel." "Oh, is there dust in the tunnel?" asked the Tin Woodman. "Yes, Ozma placed it there by means of the magic belt," explained the Scarecrow, with one of his broad smiles. Then Dorothy came to them, Uncle Henry and Aunt Em following close after her. The little girl's eyes were heavy because she had a sleepless and anxious night. Toto walked by her side, but the little dog's spirits were very much subdued. Billina, who was always up by daybreak, was not long in joining the group by the fountain. The Wizard and the Shaggy Man next arrived, and soon they appeared, amby-amby, dressed in his best uniform. "There lies the tunnel," said Ozma, pointing to a part of the ground just before the Forbidden Fountain, "and in a few moments the dreadful invaders will break through the earth and swarm over the land. Let us all stand on the other side of the fountain and watch to see what happens." At once they followed her suggestion and moved around the fountain of the water of oblivion. There they stood silent and expected until the earth beyond gave way with a sudden crash, and up leaped a powerful form of the First and Foremost, followed by all of his grim warriors. As the leader sprang forward, his gleaming eyes caught the play of the fountain, and he rushed towards it and drank eagerly of the sparkling water. Many of the other phantasms drank too in order to clear their dry and dusty throats. Then they stood around and looked at one another with simple, wondering smiles. The First and Foremost saw Ozma and her companions beyond the fountain. But instead of making an effort to capture her, he merely stared at her, in pleased admiration of her beauty, for he had forgotten where he was and why he had come there. But now the Grand Gallipoot arrived, rushing from the tunnel. With a hoarse cry of mingled rage and thirst, he too saw the fountain and hastened to drink of its forbidden waters. The other Growlywogs were not slow to follow suit, and even before they had finished drinking, the chief of the Whimsies and his people came to push them away, while they one and all cast off their false heads, that they might slake their thirst at the fountain. When the Gnome King and General Guff arrived, they both made a dash for the drink, but the general was so mad with thirst that he knocked his king over, and while Roquat lay sprawling upon the ground, the general drank heartily of the water of oblivion. This rude act of the general made the Gnome King so angry that for a moment he forgot he was thirsty and rose to his feet to glare upon the group of terrible warriors he had brought here to assist him. He saw Ozma and her people too, and yelled out, "Why don't you capture them? Why don't you conquer Oz, you idiots? Why do you stand there like a lot of dummies?" But the great warriors had become like little children. They had forgotten all their enmity against Ozma and against Oz. They had even forgotten who they themselves were, or why they were in this strange and beautiful country. As for the Gnome King, they did not recognize him and wondered who he was. The sun came up and sent its floods of silver rays to light the faces of the invaders. The frowns and scowls and evil looks were all gone. Even the most monstrous of the creatures were assembled, smiled innocently, and seemed light-hearted and content merely to be alive. Not so with Roquat, the Gnome King. He had not drunk from the forbidden fountain, and all his former rage against Ozma and Dorothy now inflamed him as fiercely as ever. The sight of General Guff babbling like a happy child and playing with his hands in the cool waters of the fountain astonished and maddened Red Roquat. Seeing that his terrible allies and his own general refused to act, the Gnome King turned to order his great army of gnomes to advance from the tunnel and seize the helpless Oz people. But the Scarecrow suspected that was in the king's mind and spoke a word to the Tin Woodman. Together they ran at Roquat and, grabbing him up, tossed him into the great basin of the fountain. The Gnome King's body was round as a ball, and it bobbed up and down in the water of oblivion, while he sputtered and screamed with fear lest he should drown. And when he cried out, his mouth filled with the water which ran down his throat, so that straightway he forgot all he had formerly known, as he had just as completely as had all the other invaders. Ozma and Dorothy could not refrain from laughing to see their dreaded enemies become as harmless as babies. There was no danger now that Oz could be destroyed. The only question remaining to solve was how to get rid of this horde of intruders. The Shaggy Man kindly pulled the Gnome King out of the fountain and set him upon his thin legs. Roquat was dripping wet, but he chattered and laughed and wanted to drink more of the water. No thought of injuring any persons was now on his mind. Before he left the tunnel, he had commanded his 50,000 gnomes to remain there until he ordered them to advance, as he wished to give his allies time to conquer Oz before he appeared with his own army. Ozma did not wish all these gnomes to overrun her land, so she advanced to King Roquat and, taking his hand in her own, said gently, "Who are you? What is your name?" "I don't know," he replied, smiling at her. "Who are you, my dear?" "My name is Ozma," she said, "and your name is Roquat." "Oh, is it?" he replied, seeming pleased. "Yes, you are the king of the gnomes," she said. "Ah, I wonder what the gnomes are," returned the king, as if puzzled. "They are underground elves, and their tunnel over there is full of them," she answered. "You have a beautiful cavern at the other end of the tunnel. So you must go to your gnomes and say, 'March home.' Then follow after them. In time you will reach a pretty cavern where you live." The Gnome King was much pleased to learn this, for he had forgotten that he had a cavern. So he went to the tunnel and said to his army, "March home." At once the gnomes turned and marched back through the tunnel, and the king followed after them, laughing with delight to find his orders so readily obeyed. The wizard went to the General Guff, who was trying to count his fingers, and told him to follow the Gnome King, who was his master. Guff meekly obeyed, and so all the gnomes quitted the land of Oz forever. But there were still the phanphasms and whimsies and growlywogs standing around in groups, and there were so many that they filled the gardens and trampled upon the flowers and grass because they did not know that the tender plants would be injured by their clumsy feet. But in all other respects they were perfectly harmless and played together like children or grazed with pleasure upon the pretty sights of the royal gardens. Gazed with pleasures. After counseling with the Scarecrow, Ozma sent Omby Amby to the palace for the magic belt. And when the Captain General returned with it, the ruler of Oz at once clasped the precious belt around her waist. I wish all these strange people, the Whimsies and the Growlywogs and the Phanphasms, safe back in their own homes, she said. It all happened in a twinkling, for of course the wish was no sooner spoken than it was granted. All the hosts of the invaders were gone, and only the trampled grass showed that they were ever in the land of Oz. Okay, let's talk about it. Excellent, thank you. I'll read that. I'll read that tonight, Nat. We'll connect. Exactly that way, Seth. Go ahead and click on the Discord link there that Lori just posted, and it'll pretty much send you an invite. And we do all kinds of stuff in Discord. I've got poetry channels in there and art channels. Got many, many artists in the PokeGhost community. And so many amazing people, each and every single one of you. Got 15 people watching me read. You guys are great. I wanted to ask, does anybody show up to these just strictly to sleep? And I also got quite the compliment today. I know that many people have been telling me my voice is good. Today I was actually told that I was made to be a voice actor, and I don't know how to take that. I like the stories, Ancient Mew. I appreciate you, fam. Didn't want to be rude. No, it's not rude at all. It is totally okay to sleep. I've been told that same thing. Well, that doesn't surprise me, Nate. You've got quite the voice. You do voices too. If I was more familiar with this story, I'd probably have voices ready to go. Oh, mama. I appreciate that. You always believed in me. Where do the stories come from? So these come from just a storybook. We're reading through the Wizard of Oz series right now. And so some of the stories, they will have to all be very, very old because I can't read anything in the public, outside of the public domain right now for fear of being copywritten. So we typically stick to the older stuff. For English classes for Leighton at home, no shot. That's amazing. I love that. Come by for the community, the stories, and the vibe. I love that, Rafa. I love that. And each and every one of you have that exact same vibe. And I was explaining tonight that I know it's October, so it is the spooky, spooky Halloween season. And I wanted to do some more like Halloween readings that weren't so like terrifyingly scary. But as the time goes a little bit later here, and we finish this book, I maybe wanted to use some of the time at the end to try and find a copy of The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe and read that to y'all tonight. I know some of you have been making that request around Halloween, so I'm going to see if I can find it. It's not too long, should only take about 30 minutes to read, but yeah, that's the plan. Yep, she speaks for us all. All right, 2 more chapters left. That would be great if you can find it online, Nate, and you can just Discord it to me. Because I was just going to try and find a copy online as opposed to, even pay 16 cents on the Kindle. I think it's a copy online. Joined. Hey, let's go, Seth. Appreciate that. All right. Chapter 29. How Glinda worked a magic spell. Nice. Big brother Nate, Nana Mama Ghost from Layton. Aw. Layton saying hi to Big brother Nate and Mama Ghost. Less than 30 seconds. Beautiful. Love it. Love it. You're a great son. Appreciate you. Chapter 29. How Glinda worked a magic spell. That was better than fighting, said Ozma when all her friends were assembled in the palace after the existing events of the morning. And each and every one agreed with her. No one was hurt, said the wizard delightedly. And no one hurt us, added Aunt Em. But best of all, said Dorothy, the wicked people have all forgotten their wickedness and will not wish to hurt anyone after this. True, Princess, declared the Shaggy Man. It seems to me that we have reformed all those evil creatures as more important than to have saved Oz. Nevertheless, remarked the Scarecrow, I am glad Oz is saved. I can now go back to my new mansion and live happily. And I am glad and grateful that my pumpkin farm is saved, said Jack. For my part, added the Tin Woodman, I cannot express my joy that my lovely tin castle is not to be demolished by wicked enemies. Still, said Tik-Tok, other enemies may come to Oz some day. Why do you allow your clockwork brains to interrupt our joy? Asked Omby Amby, frowning at the machine man. I say what I'm wound up to say, answered Tik-Tok. And you are right, declared Ozma. I myself have been thinking this very idea, and it seems to me there are entirely too many ways for people to get to the land of Oz. We used to think the deadly desert that surrounds us was enough for protection, but that is no longer the case. The wizard and Dorothy have both come here through the air, and I am told the Earth people have invented airships that can fly anywhere they wish them to go. Why, sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't, asserted Dorothy. But in time, the airships may cause us trouble, continued Ozma, for if the Earth folk learn how to manage them, we would be overrun with visitors who would ruin our lovely, secluded fairyland. That is true enough, agreed the wizard. Also, the desert fails to protect us in other ways, Ozma went on, thoughtfully. Johnny Dewett once made a sand boat that sailed across it, and the Gnome King made a tunnel under it. So I believe something ought to be done to cut us off from the rest of the world entirely, so that no one in the future will ever be able to intrude upon us. How will you do that? Asked the Scarecrow. I do not know, but in some way I am sure it can be accomplished. Tomorrow, I will make a journey to the castle of Glinda the Good and ask her advice. May I go with you? Asked Dorothy eagerly. Of course, my dear princess, and I also invite any of our friends who would like to undertake the journey. They all declared they wished to accompany the girl ruler, for this was indeed an important mission, since the future of the land of Oz to a great extent depended upon it. So Ozma gave orders to her servants to prepare for her journey on the morrow. That day, she watched her magic picture, and when it showed her that all the gnomes had returned through the tunnel to their underground caverns, Ozma used the magic belt to close up the tunnel, so that the earth underneath the desert sands became as solid as it was before the gnomes began to dig. Early the following morning, a gay cavalcade set out to visit the famous sorceress Glinda the Good. Ozma and Dorothy rode in a chariot drawn by the Cowardly Lion and the Hungry Tiger, while the Scarecrow drew the red wagon in which rode the rest of the party. With hearts light and free from care, they traveled merrily along through the lovely and fascinating land of Oz, and in good season reached the stately castle in which resided the sorceress. Glinda knew that they were coming. I have been reading about you in my magic book, she said as she greeted them in her gracious way. What is your magic book like? Inquired Aunt Em curiously. It is a record of everything that happens, replied the sorceress. As soon as an event takes place anywhere in the world, it is immediately found printed in my magic book. So when I read its pages, I am well informed. Did it tell you how our enemies drank the water of oblivion? Asked Dorothy. Yes, my dear, it told all about it. And it also told me you were coming up to my castle and why. Then, said Ozma, I suppose you know what is in my mind, and that I am seeking a way to prevent anyone in the future from discovering the Land of Oz. Yes, I know that, and while you were on your journey, I have thought of a way to accomplish your desire. For it seems to me unwise to allow too many outside people to come here. Dorothy, with her aunt and uncle, has now returned to Oz to live always, and there is no reason why we should leave any way open for others to travel uninvited to our fairyland. Let us make it impossible for anyone ever to communicate with us in any way after this. Then we may live peacefully and contentedly. Your advice is wise, returned Ozma. I thank you, Glinda, for your promise to assist me. But how can you do it? Asked Dorothy. How can you keep everyone from ever finding Oz? By making our country invisible to all eyes but our own, replied the sorceress, smiling. I have a magic charm powerful enough to accomplish that wonderful feat. And now that we have been warned of our danger by the Gnome King invasion, I believe we must not hesitate to separate ourselves from ever for the rest of the world. I agree with you, said the ruler of Oz. Won't it make any difference to us? Asked Dorothy doubtfully. No, my dear, Glinda answered assuringly. We shall still be able to see each other and everything in the land of Oz. It won't affect us at all. But those who fly through the air over our country will look down and see nothing at all. Those who come to the edge of the desert or try to cross it will catch no glimpse of Oz or know in what direction it lies. No one will try to tunnel to us again because we cannot be seen and therefore it cannot be found. In other words, the land of Oz will entirely disappear from the knowledge of the rest of the world. That's all right, said Dorothy cheerfully. You may make Oz invisible as soon as you please, for all I care. It is already invisible, Glinda stated. I knew Ozma's wishes and performed that magic spell before you arrived. Ozma seized the hand of the sorceress and pressed it gratefully. Thank you, she said. A lot better now. Nana, Layla, and I are home. Finished my music classes online, and now listening to Uncle Kev's story time. Let's go. I am also curious. What are you studying in music class? Here for spooky stories. Excellent. Oh, I like that. I like that, Brangus. Negative. They're claiming and making great background sounds. Just help me focus. I like it. I like it. Y'all are great. Yeah, y'all are great. But I didn't realize the weight of the story or that Oz might not be included in the rest of these stories in this book. Because this chapter is called How the Story of Oz Came to an End. Now I'm afraid to read it. I don't want Oz time in Oz to end. How the Story of Oz Came to an End. Oh, wow, that's unique. The writer of these Oz stories has received a little note from Princess Dorothy of Oz, which, for a time, has made him feel rather disconcerted. The note was written on a broad white feather from a stork's wing, and it said, You will never hear anything more about Oz because we are now cut off forever from all the rest of the world. But Toto and I will always love you and all the other children who love us. Dorothy Gale. This seemed to me too bad at first, for Oz is a very interesting fairyland. Still, we have no right to feel grieved, for we have had enough of the history of the land of Oz to fill 6 storybooks, and from its quaint people and their strange adventures, we have been able to learn many useful and amusing things. So good luck to little Dorothy and her companions. May they live long in their invisible country and be very happy. The end. Shortest chapter ever. As is tradition. Uh, Piano, guitar, and drums. We are learning musical notes to compose songs. Any one of those three will make the girl swoon. He's not wrong. That is incredible. You know, I used to play the piano a little bit. I took keyboard for many, many years, and I used to be able to listen and play music by ear. Maybe not instantly. It took me a few keys, but yeah, the piano is something that very much like a Rubik's Cube just takes time. But once you learn how to do things, like you'll never know how to not do them. Stick with it. So they just drank the water and lost the war before it started. That's pretty much it, Ancient Mew. Which you have to kind of expect from, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a kid's story. So I'm kind of glad that it was just like, oh, hey, but I mean, there could have been some, like, oh no, our houses are burning, and now they're thirsty, right? But I think it was still pretty ingenious of the Scarecrow to fill the tunnel with dust to make them thirsty as they were coming out right at the fountain. 5-page final paper on trauma-informed care on the work environment. No shot. Good luck on that one, Seth. And of course, let me know if you need any help. I'm a good reference in that department. But the next book in the series is called The Patchwork Girl of Oz. So it looks like we're not done with Oz quite yet. But it says, affectionately dedicated to my young friend, Sumner Hamilton Britton of Chicago. Prologue for the next book. Through the kindness of Dorothy Gale of Kansas, afterward Princess Dorothy of Oz, an humble writer in the United States of America was once appointed Royal Historian of Oz, with the privilege of writing the chronicle of that wonderful fairyland. But after making 6 books about the adventures of those interesting but queer people who lived in the land of Oz, the historian learned with sorrow that by an edict from the supreme ruler Ozma of Oz, her country would therefore after be rendered invisible to all who lived outside its borders, and that all communication with Oz would, in the future, be cut off. The children who had learned to look for the books about Oz and who loved the stories about the gay and happy people inhabiting the favored country were as sorry as their historian that there would be no more books of the Oz stories. They wrote so many letters asking if the historian did not know of some adventures to write about that had happened before the land of Oz was shut out from the rest of the world. But he did not know of any. Finally, one of the children inquired why we couldn't hear from Princess Dorothy by wireless telegraph, which would enable her to communicate to the historian whenever whatever happened in a far-off land of Oz without his seeing her or even knowing just where Oz is. That seemed a good idea, so that historian rigged up a high tower in his backyard and took lessons in wireless telegraphy until he understood it, and then began to call Princess Dorothy of Oz by sending messages into the air. Now, it wasn't likely that Dorothy would be looking for wireless messages or would heed the call, but one thing the historian was sure of, and that was that the powerful sorceress Glinda would know what he was doing and that he desired to communicate with Dorothy. For Glinda has a big book in which is recorded every event that takes place anywhere in the world. So the moment that it happens, and so of course the book would tell her about the wireless message. And that was the way Dorothy heard the historian wanted to speak with her, and there was a shaggy man in the land of Oz who knew how to telegraph a wireless reply. The result was that the historian begged so hard to be told the latest news of Oz so that he could write it down for the children to read, that Dorothy asked permission of Ozma, and Ozma graciously consented. That is why, after 2 long years of waiting, another Oz story is now presented to the children of America. This would not have been possible had not some clever man invented the wireless, and an equally clever child suggested the idea of reaching the mysterious land of Oz by its means. Frank L. Baum, Ozcott, at Hollywood in California. So, of course, the historian being Frank L. Baum himself, apparently the kids were so upset that Oz was over that they wrote him asking, why can't you communicate wirelessly with Dorothy through telegraph? And after a while, how can you say no? Nearing the finish line, gonna search for my Poe. Do it. Do it. Played the piano, guitar, drums, and trumpet since she was little. Nana's teaching me how to play. And bookwork is online. Let's go. Katrina has some music ability. What's up, Hungry Hollow? All right, we're gonna try something just a little bit new here. It would be great if I could get it on the Kindle. But what we're going to do, y'all, is it is the Halloween season. And Nate did fine for us, and I appreciate that, Rafa. Dropping the two. I'm gonna just put you on a brief hold, y'all. Did you send it to my Discord, Nate? Pull that up right quick. I'm gonna have to refill my coffee. Boom. This should be in the public domain by now, so we're just gonna go with it. The Poe Museum in Richmond, Virginia. All right, just wanted to make sure that was indeed the story. And kudos to Nate the Pokey Ghost for finding that story in record time. It's almost exactly what I was going to be doing. And the only thing I can't is I can't read and see the live chat at the same time, y'all. Hey, Johnny Knight, what's going on? I'm very impressed as well. And yes, Leighton is very talented. I have a keyboard and guitar. Can't play either good. Well, keep at it. Keep at it. You know what they say, Ancient Mew. If you want to be great at something, you've got to be willing to not be so great. Lori's still hanging out. Okay, I am going to refresh my coffee real quick. And this is a little bit darker story than Wizard of Oz. I'm just going to put the disclaimer out there. But if you're unfamiliar with Edgar Allan Poe, he's a little bit old timey, so it doesn't really translate into immediate horror. It's kind of underlying like The Raven. So this should be very interesting read for all in attendance. And I will do my best to put emotion into it. I didn't think you guys could still hear me when I'm getting coffee now. All right. Pumpkin coffee. Oh yeah. Heard the spoon. Practice makes perfect indeed. I'm here, been lurking. No worries at all, Matt. It's good to see you, fam. It was good to see you as always. We're going to read The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. See if I can set it up this way. Aw, that is so sweet, Leighton. Many things to learn, absolutely. All right, here we are. And I've read this story many, many times, but yeah, this is the very first time I'm reading it out loud. So just throwing that out there into the wind now. So I appreciate y'all being here for me for it. And let's get into a Halloween story, The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How, then, am I mad? Hearken, and observe how healthy, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none. Passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eyes. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye, with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now, this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation. I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during this whole week before I had killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it. Oh, so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed, so that no light shone out. And then I thrust my head in. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously. Cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture's eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when that day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, he would have been very profound old man, indeed, to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feeling of triumph, to think that there I was opening the door, little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was black as pitch, with a thick darkness, for the shutters were closed, fastened through fear of robbers. And so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing it on steadily, steadily. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still, and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in bed listening, as I have done, night after night, hearkening to death watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh, no. It was a low, stifled sound that arisen from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it was welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo, the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that I had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise, when he had turned in bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, and could not. He had been saying to himself, "It's nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor." Or, "It's merely a cricket which had made a single chirp." Yes, he has been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions. But he had found all in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked him with his black shadow before him, and enveloped the victim. And it was a mournful influence of an unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shot out from the crevice and fell upon his vulture eye. It was open, wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow of my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And now have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but a over-acuteness of the senses? Now I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was a beating of an old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet, I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now, at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of the old house, so strange a noise as this excited me into uncontrollable terror. Yet for some minutes longer I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder. I thought the heart must burst. And now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him, and then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I awoke hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse, cut off the head and the arms and the legs. Then I took it up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the board so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what I had now to fear. There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity. These officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasure, secured, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in a wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerfully, they chattered of familiar things, but ere long I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definitiveness until, at length, I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice, yet the sound increased. And what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound. Much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men. But the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore, I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder and louder and louder. And still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, no, they heard. They suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. But anything is better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die, and now, again, hark, louder, 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 louder. Villains! I shrieked. Disassemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here. It is the beating of his hideous heart. That's it, the end. And that has been done so many times through so many medias in Hollywood and cartoons, and I can remember Mickey Mouse doing it at one point, I'm sure. So yeah, it's a very beloved story. And it's also a story of consciousness and being a good person. But I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope that wasn't too, it was a little dark, but I hope it wasn't too dark. Is that the first time you've heard that, Ancient Mew? I hope you're doing well, Darker Bunnies. I saw you here. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope I didn't scare off too many people. Still 12 of y'all in here. 20 likes. Does anybody else have any other recommendations? We can do another. Mama, I appreciate you being here. So masterful, right? Like that reading. I appreciate that, Brangus. I do appreciate that. Yeah, that's the first time I think I've read that story out loud. Clearly he's mad. And it's him convincing us he's not. Somebody said, let me dig out the Edgar Allan Poe hardcover, and I've got one of them around here somewhere. Going to bed soon. Yeah, it's getting pretty late there. It's about midnight there, Mama. We're here too. Excellent. Yep. Yep. I think I am going to start a little side project of videos of just reading poetry, kind of like the one I put out today, just so that we can cement it. Absolutely, Brangus. Appreciate you, fam. Hope you start feeling better. I hope you have a great night. And yes, we will definitely see you in the next stream. Thursday. Thursday it is. Yep, that is expected. Some people do definitely they let me know straight up they come here just so that they can sleep. Holy moly, Brangus sending out 5 gifted memberships. Holy moly, you did not have to do that, Brangus. I really appreciate that, fam. Parting gift, I appreciate that. Pokey Cat scooping it up. Veggie Beast, Shuni the Small, Christina, Slinkard, Lucky, James, Eller swooping up the gifts from Brangus McGee, I super appreciate you, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your generosity and everything you do, not just for me, but for the channel, for the community. You truly are a legend in our wake. So really appreciate you, brother. And an absolute list of legends scooping up those memberships. All right. Community you have. Well, certainly are a part of that community, and I couldn't even imagine doing this without you guys. Specifically you, Brangus, you've certainly helped me in a lot of ways, my brother. Thank you. Let me see here. I was going to try and find something else to read just real quick. Well, since it's frozen on this is something I can certainly read. Pretty sure everybody here has heard it, but this is actually an original from me. I wrote it so many years ago. And then what we'll do is I think we'll call it there for the night, unless anybody else had any requests. And I think I'm going to, as mentioned in next Monday, it's actually my birthday on the 20th. So I'm going to be doing a Pokemon stream. I'm going to be bringing it back to the Pokemon desk and doing a normal stream over there for my birthday next Monday. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to be doing reading, because I can very much do reading Tuesday or Wednesday. It matters little to me, and I do enjoy reading, and I like my consistency. So if we do that on Tuesday or Wednesday, I think I'm going to turn that whole reading stream into Poe's works, I think. Happy birthday, young man. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Oh, we could do wink and blink and a nod. Maybe we will. Maybe we will. We're gonna do one by me personally though. This one's called Sunflowers in the Sand. It popped right up when I pulled up my email. I didn't even have to look for anything, and I call that a sign. And I don't look away on those. So, but this is done by me personally, called Sunflowers in the Sand. Another day I wake from sleep, wishing I didn't have to stand. Last night's dream I'd like to keep where all the floor is sand. Where rabbits are underwater creatures and snakes fly in the sky, or frogs and squirrels have mixed match features with sunflowers 10 feet high. When you say hello, your greeter slaps you in your face, and goodbye, they bite your fingers. Everything is magical in this place, however, darkness seems to linger. And you can feel it pull and tug at every corner you come to, the good, the bad, the evil bugs, each with a doorway to come through. And you try to do what's right in this magical land of yours, even if it means to fight and knock on evil doors. But if you're pure of heart, then the sun is always sunny, and then when evil tries to play its part, makes everything more funny. Yet, even when you're pure of heart and ignore the evil voices, the paths they show you from the start will seem the better choices. So, in this dreamland of mine where snowmen live in summer, my best friend's a walking, talking canine, and the palm trees are made of rubber. Everything is fun and games while walking through the sand. The devil may collect your names, just don't take him by the hand. I'm waiting now. Appreciate that. Appreciate that, Mama. Yep, that was an original from me. Super appreciate you guys all being here. And I am also working on other things. I've become awful more critical in my older writing days, but I am certainly working on more original works that I can read to y'all. So more to come on that. Awesome. Really appreciate y'all. If you will, just give me 1 second. I'm going to see if there's anybody we can bring our small crew of 10 on over to bless a little Pokey Ghost read and raid. I know Rob is typically live on Mondays. Let's see. And then, yes, during our Monday giveaway, of course, we do have. Oh, it's Fierce Fire's birthday today. I just don't know if he's so family friendly. And I don't want to bring everybody over there. So we're going to go and raid Rob. Yeah, we're going to go and raid Rob, red or blue. Appreciate that, Rafa. Yeah, I kind of just auto to Rob. I love you too, Mama Ghost. And I promise I'll be better at that because I know that I was doing some raids recently. And when I finish up a little bit early, I bring a little bit more of my community over and I have to be more conscious of where I'm bringing people. So I apologize if I ever redirected to a stream that maybe wasn't so family friendly in the past, but I'm going to be doing a little bit better based on my times, my community, my presence in chat of where we go. So I really, really do appreciate it. Not to say that Fierce isn't a stand-up individual. He is a brother of mine indeed. Canadian brother. It is his birthday, 30th, so make sure you swing by and say happy birthday. But we're going to go to Rob and yeah, do a little Pokey Ghost raid. But I super appreciate everybody being here for the Relax and Read on Monday. And remember, everybody, to always go out and get everything that you set out to get. And don't let anything stop you. But it takes $0 to be a good person. So always do it through peace, love, and Pokemon. And thank you all for believing in ghosts. I love you all, and I will see you on Thursday.